Welcome to the future of education. The global pandemic has affected educational systems worldwide, and in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19, most governments have ordered the temporary closure of educational institutions. School closures have shed light on various social and economic issues, including income insecurity, as well as access to health care and other services. The impact was more severe for disadvantaged children and their families. And without a commercially available vaccine in sight, many academic institutions are left to scramble for a solution to deliver formal education using non-face-to-face strategies. We can help schools implement effective learning strategies. We can help produce interactive video-based learning contents supplemented by performance assessment tools. These contents can be deployed online or offline. We can help design, build, deploy, and maintain a learning management system or LMS for schools. A learning management system helps extend e-learning by providing a way to deliver lessons quickly and administer supplemental activities effectively. Academ-e is supported by professionals from the Academ-e and by Ecom Corporation for its technology and content development initiatives. Our content development team consists of more than 50 highly experienced graphic artists, video editors, IT professionals, and certified professionals from the Academ-e. Since 2001, Ecom Corporation has worked with schools in developing interactive multimedia content for learning, training, and gaming.
Through Academ-e, education has been made easy.
Technology all around us is evolving at an unprecedented rate, creating new jobs and rendering traditional jobs obsolete. This evolution is forcing companies to take a hard look within. Are the skills and abilities of their workforce growing to meet rapidly changing demands? To respond to this challenge, most companies send employees to trainings and seminars in hopes of equipping them with the skill sets needed to be future-proof. However, are they tracking the learning growth of each employee within their workforce? Furthermore, are these companies really identifying the return on investment from the trainings they provide to their employees? Just in the Philippines alone, there are over 2.7 million companies employing 200 or more people. These companies spend nearly $9.7 billion on training annually. Now that's a lot of money. The problem is, companies cannot identify the return on investment on the trainings they provide to their employees. And not to mention, it's expensive to track the learning growth on a per individual basis. This is where Storm Learning comes in. We help companies understand their workforce training needs through analyzing their skill and competency gaps. After the analysis, we then map those gaps to the appropriate trainings either through the company's internal training offerings or the external trainings in our carefully curated marketplace of over 2,000 courses across 4 distinct product categories: classroom-based learning, online learning, certifications and assessments, and events and conferences. We have partnered with world-class training providers from all over the globe, ensuring our clients get the best prices on the market. Track, analyze, compare, and purchase your training needs, all in one platform. At Storm Learning, we're helping bridge the gap between training providers and companies in the hopes that we can help cultivate your learning culture to prepare your workforce for the future. Get started with a free trial today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Consul Jed Leona from the Philippine Consulate General in San Francisco. Welcome to the third of our 8-part webinar series entitled Global Business Processes Powered by the Philippines. These webinars are brought to you by the Philippine Embassy, the Philippine Consulates General, and the Philippine Trade and Investment Centers in the United States. Every Thursday from August 13 to October 1, we will be highlighting the various opportunities in outsourcing in the Philippines across a wide range of fields, including call centers, virtual assistants, healthcare, research, software, apps development, financial technology, just to name a few. This afternoon, our webinar will focus on getting your school or company ready for distance learning, outsourcing the creation of effective e-learning solutions. We are happy to be joined by two resource speakers, Mikhail Torres of Academ-e and DM Varun of SkillBean, who will be sharing with us their experience with e-learning in the Philippines and how your organization could benefit from what the Philippines has to offer, especially as we continue to deal with the global pandemic. We'd like to invite everyone joining us at the webinar to send your questions by pressing the chat button on Zoom. We'll try our best to ask these questions to our resource speakers during the Q&A after their presentations. So we can now begin with our first speaker, Engineer Mikhail Joseph Torres, Director of Technology at Academ-e Multimedia Solutions, Inc. So aside from Academ-e, Mike handles the day-to-day operations of EACom Corporation, a developer of custom multimedia and software applications for Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, small and medium-scale enterprises. Mike also sits on the board of other companies in the United Kingdom and the Philippines with interests in unified communications, managed office spaces, agribusiness, and real estate. He completed his Bachelor of Science in Electronics and Communications Engineering and Master's in Business Administration from the University of the Philippines. So good morning there in the Philippines, Mike. You may begin your presentation.
Hello. So good afternoon to everyone in the US and good evening to anyone from the East Coast. So let me start my presentation. So I'll be discussing the EdTech outsourcing landscape, cost-effective ways to deliver distance learning through outsourcing, particularly for the Philippines, outsourcing to the Philippines. So first, let's discuss a little bit about how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the education systems in the world. Right now, the World Bank is saying that around 106 countries worldwide have school closures, countrywide school closures. This is costing around 100 billion out-of-school students right now, 60.5% of the total enrolled. And then we're looking at around 7 million additional student dropouts due to income shock. And this is causing an estimated loss of between 0.3 to 0.9 years of basic schooling for the current batch of students in the world. So in terms of educational systems, the impact would affect academic institutions due to possible altered curriculum to fit the shortened schedules. The schools might take a financial hit in terms of enrollee fallout and modification of resources. And they may have to offer alternative means to deliver educational services. For teachers, they may also take a financial hit, possibly reduce income opportunities, or worse, they might have to be laid off. They may also need to learn new technologies and adjust their teaching methodologies. And they may have to scramble to adapt their lesson content for a distance learning strategy. For parents and students, they'll have to juggle work responsibilities, if not unemployment, with caring for and educating their children. So obviously health security and financial recovery is more of a primary concern. As such, parents might have to seek educational alternatives, like moving their children from private school to public school, maybe consider homeschooling or outright stopping education until this pandemic is over. And whatever happens due to this pandemic, students are definitely going to face greater learning challenges. So everybody's saying that to avoid the spread of the virus, social distancing is required. So schools particularly have a challenge in implementing social distancing. For example, they might have to cancel activities such as school fairs, graduations. They might have to consider changing their teacher to student ratio, so to be able to have more space in the classrooms. And they might have to consider moving into distance learning strategies or using technology to deliver education. So this is where edutech solutions come in. So what are typical edutech solutions that can support schools in this time of need? So we're classifying basically three components of edutech solutions. First is software systems. So this would include learning management systems, school management systems, the actual e-learning content. So these are either performance support, as a learning experience, or as a main source of information for the students. And finally, we have alternative learning systems. This would be special education systems, highly specialized curriculum programs, or perhaps tutorial services. Okay, so how can the Philippines help in terms of edutech outsourcing? So the Philippines has experience in software development, learning content development, and alternative learning systems. So for software, for example, we have a very strong labor force in terms of software development, and we can do the school systems like learning management systems and and school management systems. And we can also do mobile app development and game development. For e-learning, we have a strong experience in the creative industry, and we can do the story development, storyboard development. We can do video editing, 2D, 3D animation, motion graphics, even the voice and music and sound effects. And of course, we can do interactive learning content as well. For alternative learning systems, this is a new trend that's happening in the Philippines, where we have online tutoring or video-based teaching. So this is popular right now for our Asian neighbors here for teaching basically English as a second language. So for example, 51 Talk is a Chinese company. They're currently they're currently employing 20,000 partner teachers in the Philippines, and they're looking to expand this actually to over 100,000 students. For Rare Jobs, this is a Japanese company. We have around 800,000 users in Japan, and they're already employing around 6,000 Filipino teachers to teach English. So the Philippines has close to 40 years of experience in IT-based outsourcing. So we're not a gamble, no? We're one of the leaders in outsourcing. We have close to 1.8 million people working in the IT BPO sector. 400,000 of those are involved in a component of edutech outsourcing, which would be software, game, or animation. This is not to count over 1.5 million freelancers who are mostly as well working on either IT or in the creative industry. All in all, IT BPO outsourcing is contributing around 9% to the Philippine economy. So like I said, the Philippines is a recognized leader in terms of IT outsourcing along with India, as compared to alternative destinations such as China and Mexico, and developing global destinations such as Chile, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. Okay. So in terms of rates, here's a graph about the hourly rates comparison between software development, for example, in the Philippines, which ranges around $10 to maybe $60 per hour, as compared to the US, where it would range around anywhere from 40 to all the way to $200 per hour. For 2D animation and video editing, roughly from anywhere from 10 to all the way to $50 per hour. And as you can see, the remote teaching here is very affordable. It starts as low as $3 per hour all the way to maybe around $20 per hour, as compared to the US, where it would be maybe around 20 to 30 US dollars per hour. So in general, Philippine labor rates around 40 to 80% cheaper than US labor rates. So in the bottom part of the slide, you'll see For example, LMS subscriptions in the US would probably be charging anywhere in the $1 to $10 per month per user. So the Philippines can provide that at that same rate a lot more services such as customization of the LMS, training of the users, all the way to web hosting, support and maintenance, etc. And learning content, or maybe around an hour of learning content would average around $32,000 if you do it in the US. Easily in the Philippines, we can do that at half the cost. Okay. So next, I'll be discussing a little bit about our company, Academ-e. So we help schools implement effective learning strategies by helping them develop ready-to-use learning modules, which enables teachers to focus on their primary function and improves the learning comprehension of students. So Academ-e is a partnership between two organizations, IACOM Corporation and Achievers Special Education Center. So IACOM was founded in 2001. We're an award-winning multimedia and software development studio, and we count Fortune 500 companies such as Google, Ericsson, and Emerson, as well as the top-tier Philippine schools as our clients. Achievers is a special education center, is a school for fast learners and gifted children. It was founded in 1996, and its course curriculum was designed by a National Outstanding Teacher awardee here in the Philippines. And aside from this, we also hire consultants, PhD course developers, and consultants from the University of the Philippines. So typically, when we are engaged by clients, they don't need to be knowledgeable in terms of e-learning or how to develop e-learning modules. All they need to do is provide us their lesson plans for their traditional school modules. And our content experts will be the one who convert this to e-learning modules. First, by developing a storyboard, which the teachers would have to approve and assess. And then once these are approved, these storyboards will be developed into either video or interactive content by our multimedia developers. And then once this content has been completed, we would then upload this either to the client's LMS or to an LMS that we provide the client. And we complement these modules with other interactive and quizzes or exercises that are uploaded to the LMS. So like the video earlier mentioned, we have around 50 total content experts and multimedia developers working for us right now. So some projects that we've done in the past. So the first we've done, for example, for USAID here in the Philippines, we've developed an interactive DVD learning package with over 1,500 documents and 8 gigabytes of video, which was distributed to rural banks in the Philippines, in southern Philippines, in Mindanao. We've also done bilingual mobile apps targeting preschool children. And then we've also done web-based multiplayer learning games for an e-learning provider here in the Philippines. Okay. Currently, we're very busy. We're developing actually over 1,500 e-learning modules, which we are offering now to private schools here in the Philippines. This would be K to 6, so kinder to grade 6 learning modules. Each of these modules have their own lesson plan, and then video-based lessons, and then is supplemented by quizzes and interactive exercises that are uploaded to the LMS. Okay. And what can we offer the US? So basically, if you outsource to Academ-e, we can do software development, custom software, be it learning management systems or school management systems. We can also do training, customization, installation, maintenance, and support of either our own systems or even open source systems such as Moodle. In terms of e-learning content development, we can do video-based and interactive K-12 modules. We can do mobile apps and games. And we can also do components of these systems, such as storyboards, 2D, 3D animation, motion graphics, voice overlay, music, and sound effects. In terms of alternative learning systems, we're currently developing our own e-tutoring platform. So this is a video-based conferencing platform as well. And it would have automated student tutor matching. And basically, that's it. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for that timely presentation, especially as we open schools here in the United States. Now, our next speaker is DM Varun, who is the co-founder and CEO of SkillBean, previously known as Storm Learning, a company created to increase the visibility and accountability in the training ecosystem in the Philippines. Now, DM is a serial entrepreneur with 2 successful startup exits. He has worked with companies for 7 years across Asia, including the Philippines, India, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. His vision is to nurture solutions and coach businesses to solve problems that have a socio-economic impact. So good morning, DM. Good morning there in Manila. You may proceed with your
Good
presentation.
morning. Yes. Let me just a second. I think there's some challenge. Good day, everyone. Thanks for having us today. Just to start with, let me introduce you to some of the people in my team, right? We have, next slide, please. Yeah, so we have 3 individuals in my team who are quite unique, right? So for their learning preferences, even though they work in the same company, which is mine, so at the same time, even though we have standard processes for training and development within the company, but you can see all 3 of them have unique learning styles, right? You can't address each and every one's learning style through your company because one, it becomes really taxing. At the same time, it becomes really expensive. So this brings us to the bigger problem, which is what we see today. Next slide. Today, I'll be taking you guys through what's happening globally in terms of training and development on a corporate level. At the same time, I'll be sharing you with the insights of some of the researches that we've done recently, especially the research that we did last year for 2019, where we interviewed more than 100 companies and over 300 employees from various verticals of the business to understand what their preference for learning and developments are. And also I will take you through how companies can start today, or if they are thinking of learning and development systems or digitizing their approach in terms of training their employees, how can they do that? Next slide. Next. Great. The reason, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Deloitte's HR report that they release every single year. If you don't, please go through it. Some of the important insights from that we also see in the real day life when we interact with different companies is 86% of the leaders or the CEOs or the CEOs in the company, they want to improve their L&D and make it as a priority. But most of the time where it comes down is only 10% of them, they think that they're ready to address in terms of the change or the requirement for the company, because training and development is not something that you can switch off and switch on immediately when you want it. It's something that is inbuilt in the company as a culture. So how do you start it? So that's the biggest leap of faith that companies might have to take sometimes. Next. Today, if more than 54% of the employees that you have in your workforce today would require upskilling or reskilling in the just 3 years. And moreover, the fact that we are in pandemic today, it's already fast tracked that entire 3 years plan, where today you can already see people are picking up new skills to adjust to their work environment. It can be either talking to people over virtual, or how do you manage your virtual audience. There are different new skills coming up, right? And it's always it's a cat and mouse game where companies need to adjust in terms of the pace at which they need to develop their employees, which you'll see in the next slide. Next slide. If you take a look at what's happening around in globally and especially in the US, it's already that 77% of the companies have already shifted to online learning. Whether it's effective or not, that's a whole new topic to talk about, but it's already a shift where people are seeing that their employees are having better knowledge retentions or better productivity work. And one thing they always say that is at least you need to spend 1% of your work week on to get in new skills. And when you're doing this comes to just like around 5 minutes on an average per day, right? If you go through the regular training process, where will you plug in those 5 minutes? Or how will you address the people with short attention span, or people now, since most of the people are working from home, it becomes really tough. But with the help of micro learning or online learning or the tools that you put in your company, this becomes much more effective in terms of reaching out to those employees and helping them understand what's the benefits of upskilling. Next slide. So if you guys want, you can go ahead and take the screenshot of this or scan the code. It'll directly take you guys to the for the report that we have, or you can find it in the website of SkillBean. But I'll take you through the brief summary of what we saw in the report. Next. There, 6 out of 10 people that we surveyed felt that the company already values their career development. But that means companies are already at the verge of understanding or losing their best talent if they don't adapt or change or address the requirement of those employees, right? So next. Today, there are two versions what's happening, two variations, where companies or institutions or organizations, they try to box in learning, where you say that, hey, it's a very popcorn style, where they say that, hey, today we are going to learn about sales training, we're going to look at digital marketing training. But learning is very personal, especially during the COVID times where people are in the comforts of their home. It becomes more personal and more unique to their learning styles. That's where it's very important to understand, rather than it being a push from the company, it rather being a ask from the employees. This is something that we need to take a look at, is where we need to understand the importance of making your employees feel that the training that they're getting is something that they can apply in their day-to-day learning. Your employees are the people who will tell you what trainings they want, or you already have enough tools out there in the market to understand where they are today. But employers, the companies, are the architects who are driving and designing this whole system, where instead of being it as a push or a reactive situation for training and development. Next. One out of every 10 employees that we surveyed, they said it doesn't help them in the company in terms of applying whatever they're learning from the basic methods, or whether it can be giving them a PDF, or if you have like a basic LMS system in the company, giving them access to tons and tons of data. But if the employees are not able to see the importance of applying that work to their daily work progress, that training effectiveness decreases over time, and the curve is very steep, where you can see the retention of whatever you've trained or whatever you spent on the training will not yield you good results over time. Next. The biggest learning that people really appreciate is peer-to-peer and mentorship learning. And today, whether it's during the pandemic, or whether we go back to the new normal, this doesn't still change. People still like to learn with that physical context, but that term physical has a whole new meaning today. It can be these Zoom meetings that we are doing as interactive learning. It can be something that they feel, which is they hear through audibles, or something that they watch as a video, rather than just a training where they sit and just go through pages. That's something that's being outdated already, and you can already see the impact of it in your organizations. Next. More than 35% that we surveyed already feel that their environment doesn't encourage learning. And in fact, this got strengthened when we were in the pandemic situation. When we spoke to these some of the clients, they said like, DM, for us, one of the biggest problem is to engage and get a feedback from our employees to understand how what the training is required, because now there is a physical disconnect which won't change for quite a while now. The biggest problem that they are facing is to create their environment. I'll show you how in a minute. Next. Next. If the reason Mikhail already covered very well in terms of what the Philippine landscape for outsourcing looks like. I just want to give in terms of certain numbers, key numbers that are add on for his points. In today, for any company or the companies that we work with globally, regionally, or locally, it takes about $250 to $100, $400 just to create a small 30-minute production training video. This can be recorded, and usually this, when you compare to the global market out there, it usually takes about $1,500 to provide the similar service. This is made happen due to few things, where today people are already, Philippines has enough background and talent in the country to support such services in terms of training and development, in terms of course curriculum creation, in terms of the technology itself. In fact, since we are one of those Filipino companies, the technology itself to support such learning behaviors within the company has completely changed the game, where we don't have to build all these services in-house as a company. In fact, you save in terms of your expenses a lot by outsourcing it to different working companies within the Philippines, or even certain in the region as well. The biggest advantage of Philippines is the Philippines being a major English speaking country. Next. Here at SkillBean, we are a training management and a learning experience platform where we bring in all the content that you have in the world into a particular order, where think of the time you had a curriculum that you followed in your university. Now, given there are different multiple learning sources, whether it can be Coursera, Udemy, edX, or even a podcast or your YouTube video, what we do is through our system, we try to create a personalized learning journey for your employees so that they know they have an individual development plan that can be their control or at their own pace. But it gives the companies at the same time enough information about your training behavior within the company. Because when we do it through SkillBean and for our clients, we actually methodologically take them through different process where we look at the assessments of looking the what are the competency level and the gaps of their employees, and designing a curriculum around the training that are particular for that skill gap that they are identifying, and then giving a technology as a pre-context to make sure that the tracking and scaling is done easily. Next. Correct. Now, in the last few slides, I just want to leave with something that you can apply or take a look at in terms of your employee situation today in your company itself. People already are making assumptions of going and getting new training programs, subscribing to new platforms, getting XYZ. The reactive nature of the company doesn't change if there is a solid plan. So please start taking a look at your current situation within the company of what your skill sets of your employees are like right now. And if you are looking at expanding your team or making sure that you're going to run a lean team, take a look at initially what do you have in-house so that you can plan effectively. Next. And this comes from a point where when we looked at our nature of training and development, majority of the people prefer a classroom or a blended type learning. But today, because of pandemic situations and all, you know, that's already changing. So companies and the employees are already moving way past towards self-paced learning, online courses, MOOC, or whether it can be internal systems that companies are deploying. But this is the right time for companies to already take a look at that digital transformation for training and development, and making use of the global resource to create something concrete for their company rather than building it internally, as it's going to cost you time. Next. And one thing that we've always told companies and people, the best teachers are always there in your company, but they just need enablement and the right tools to be more effective. Whether it's helping them reach out to more audience in your company or to better that audience engagement. I think this is something that you already have. Please take a look at it. We do have some of the tools where we already gauge the competency level of each and every of your employees. I'll be happy to share with anyone who has questions later. Next. The final slide that I want to leave everyone with is, just don't think of training and development or this investment as something that you just need to put into as a band-aid solution. Please do think this as your cultural change that's coming in the new normal, where people are already getting used to a lot of things, especially where we are. We already see a lot of buy into all the digital platforms, whether it's fintech or educational online learning, or whether it's their engagement and communication with their peers and the people. Please take a look at the current culture and don't be reactive within the company for training and development, because in the longer run, having a plan or a learning journeys for your employees helps in their development and helps you better understand where you can, to what point you can upskill them and reskill them when necessary. Next. Thanks everyone. That would be it from my end. I'll make sure that Andrea and the team, everyone gets a copy of the presentation, as well as all the attached resources behind it, so that you get to go and take a look at more in depth of what we have created, or in terms of our services. You have our contacts right there. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. We'll be happy to help you and give you more information on how to help in that first step of digital transformation for training and development. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, DM. Thank you, DM, for that presentation, especially on the value of continuous learning for people in any organization. So we'll now proceed to the next part of our webinar, our Q&A with our two resource speakers. So I'm joined once again by DM and Mike. So once again, for those in the webinar, you may send your questions by using the chat button on Zoom. And for those on Facebook Live, you may send your questions through the Facebook page of the Philippine Trade and Investment Center, Silicon Valley. So we do have some questions coming in at this point. I'll try my best to merge the similar questions. So first, I guess this is for both of you. In your opinion, can you share the key challenges in the creation and implementation of e-learning systems and edutech in the Philippines? So Mike, can I start with you?
Okay. So, well, in terms of outsourcing, I guess the main issue there is obviously for us that we're developing K-12 modules, no, for basic education modules. So we're not exactly familiar with the, I'm sure there are similarities between the US and the Philippine education systems, but obviously there are particular rules in the US that we do not have here in the Philippines. So that's where probably the challenges would come in terms of outsourcing content here. Is more on the differences in the educational systems. But how we tackle that is, like we said, no, we're basically, the teachers in the US would have to provide us their lesson plans, their lesson strategies, and that's what we convert to e-learning.
Thank you. DM?
Yeah, just a small clarification of the question. Does it mean for the companies within the Philippines or the region or for the global companies?
Well, the question is for in the Philippines.
All right. So it's interesting, right? Because it's different challenges and different things for when we move across in terms of regions and the countries. Especially in the Philippines, one thing that you need to know is like most of the workforce that are coming in already that are that are already the main revenue generation for the employer for the companies are already in the age bracket of 25 to 30 to 45, right? So these are the millennials and just entering right behind the border of that millennial zone. For them, a old setting of like a classroom training or telling them to go 60 people in one room, please go talk to listen to one person telling you how to what to learn, that something is not well taken for anymore, because people are multi omni-channel in terms of devices. They already are absorbing a lot of information. So the key challenge where it happens right now for the Philippines market is most of the companies today are being reactive. They are already looking at putting a band-aid solution, saying, hey, we need to upskill these people in this particular thing. We need to upskill this department in XYZ skills, rather than creating an actual individual development plan or an IDP, where we also call it as a learning journey within our company, where it is a guided procedural work where both the employees and the employers work at the same time to create a holistic curriculum for yourself, right? Whether it can be trainings that you have within the company or trainings that you need from someone, or whether it can be online. So that's one of the key challenge is for companies to come out of that reactive mode.
Thanks, DM. So the
Yeah.
next, we have two questions that are very similar here.
Okay.
So this one, I guess this is for Mike. Special needs education is in a formal school setting in the Philippines is very limited. How can e-learning education help address this problem? And we have another question from Joey Erandio. Do you have a program for learners with special needs?
Okay, so special needs children is very difficult to address, particularly in terms of e-learning. No? What's happening now in terms that I'm aware of now, because of the pandemic, a lot of the special needs children are doing teletherapy. So what that basically, this is one-on-one video conferencing with their therapists or their teachers. But the problem with special needs is it's going to be very difficult to do asynchronous learning, which is what we typically promote in terms of e-learning, because you have to take care of the child, etc. So it's the I'm not aware of a very effective yet way of converting this training or teaching these special needs children to this kind of mode, as opposed to basically directly one-on-one teaching via Zoom, and then having a parent assist the child. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. So, and then this next question, I guess, is for both of you. How do you know that the e-learning design or system you develop is effective? Is there a review or an assessment process that you follow? So maybe I can start with DM.
Sure. This is actually one of the first problems we tackled when we even started the company back in late 2016, is to answer that particular question. Any system, whether it's e-learning or training and development system, how do you know if it's being effective, right? So over time, it usually generally just absorbs and just people forget about it. So one of the key way that we do it within the company is, of course, our platform has all ways of reporting capabilities in terms of helping the employers or the HR people to understand what trainings are the trainings that people are spending more time on. What are they communicating with people about? What is that interest being generated within the platform for what type of training? And this is also complemented with assessments, but we also do something which is called effectiveness of the training in your work condition. Whether, even if it can be like a 5 minutes training that they take on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis, they attend the 30-minute training. The key thing that we take a look at over there is how effectively they were able to apply that for their work, for helping them solve whatever problems they were looking at, and how quick was the solution? Were they able to get the solution immediately? And was the solution being driven from the company's content, or the global content that's out there. So HR and HR departments now becomes your business intelligence for understanding what are the patterns, what are the numbers in terms of their employees' behavior. So we do use tech to generate some of the insights. At the same time, it's also complemented with a lot of competency mapping.
Okay, so in our case, actually, that's the main dilemma right now in the K to 6, especially in the Philippines, where practically all the schools are doing distance learning. Is really how effective is it? We don't know. We basically this is the first time that the Philippines is going to do it across the board. So right now we're actually deploying. For our case, we already have 2 schools that are running our curriculums live, and we're really closely assessing how the students are responding to it, how effective it is in terms of retaining their attention, as opposed to just live video conferencing or as previous to their on classroom setting. So far, we don't have quantitative measures yet because the exams are still coming probably by the next few weeks, the quarterly exam. So that's probably where we can really assess if there's an improvement or there's a decline in terms of learning. But so far, the qualitative feedback from the students and from the parents is the children are enjoying their video-based education right now. And then I guess they're enjoying staying at home as well.
Great. Well, this next question, I think this is from Consul Ryan Henera in Chicago. Illinois offers a Seal of Biliteracy program, which recognizes high school graduates who have attained a level of proficiency in English and in one more language, such as Filipino. To be recognized, a student needs to be tested and assessed for proficiency in Filipino. Does the industry have the capability to conduct this assessment and certification online? I guess this would be for Mike.
Yeah, well, on our side, we do develop the training modules for Filipino language, especially for K to 6, as I mentioned. As far as a certification body for the Filipino language I'm not sure if there is one in the Philippines, or I guess schools would have to be able to certify the students. For example, a specific university or specific school would have to do the certification. But we provide the learning modules.
Right. So the next question, I guess this is for both DM and Mike, regarding infrastructure and measures to protect intellectual property. Can Academ-e and SkillBean expound on their information security policy, and how is this aligned with the protection of a client's IP? So DM, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure thing. This is quite interesting because this is something that we really invest and we take a look at how we make sure the content doesn't leak out or doesn't get transferred from one employee to another employee as well. Some of the measures that we take here, quick measures that I can say, apart from being globally certified for safety and security in terms of all the platforms that we provide in the company. Apart from that, what we also take a look at, every employee or every company, what they create as their materials online, or they place it on our platform, even we don't have access to it. Even we don't know what they've put in over there. This is where even our business intelligence team, or when our team goes and sits in front of the company to review what they've done, that's only the time they show us what they've put in the system. For us, it's a basic numbers in terms of who's enrolled, how many people have enrolled. Those are the basic things that we get. So IP, whatever you get, since we are a SaaS platform, it's an online platform as well. It's completely shielded from one company to another company, and in many cases from one team to one team, and from one employee to another employee. That's something that we've taken a lot of effort in terms of putting in those security measures and privacy laws, so that there's enough measures for companies to put their content that might be very competitive, or it might be an advantage over other competitions they have, but they can happily do it because we've already worked with some of the banks. And as you know, some of the banks have the highest procurement process when it comes to security and privacy purposes. So yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, basically, yeah, well, what DM said, basically, we have for our systems, we do have built-in securities, of course, making sure for example, for learning management systems, trying to make sure that the videos are not easily shareable, not easily downloadable, to protect the
Right.
IP, our IP particularly, or our client's IP. Uh, it's a bit more challenging in terms of when we do the actual content development for our clients. So this is basically really humans making sure our employees have signed very strict NDAs, very strict non-competitive agreements. So this is very standard for all our developers, for all our editors. Particularly if we do outsourcing and if the client is very strict on IP, so we make sure that all our systems are secure in the office. So basically our employees cannot take home the development process. They have to work in the office. Their PCs are locked out from sharing it outside the office, just to ensure that the IP is protected for our clients.
Thanks, Mike. So this next question is from Special Trade Representative Nick Bautista from the Philippine Trade and Investment Center in New York. So he's asking, well, the US federal government, through agencies that include USAID, is in the process of exploring issuing financial grants to selected partner countries to assist MSMEs, micro and small medium enterprises, take advantage of the expanded virtual trade post-COVID. So have you participated in similar programs before? And if so, in what capacity? And would you be able to cite examples? So he's asking about your involvement in these types of grants and partnerships,
Yeah.
especially with the US. DM, can I start with you?
Sure. To be very frank about it, and we haven't participated in any of the US side of things because some of the companies that we work with are quite global, and they do have, even if they have headquarters in the US, we do adhere to their local practices, and at the same time, we do make sure that we also follow their global procurement laws in terms of what they set as standards. But in terms of medium-sized SMEs or the grants that we worked with, we haven't worked with the US side of things of that yet, but we do have worked with other Southeast Asian countries and some of the countries in Europe where we are helping them kind of create these things, this kind of learning systems, or creating that individual learning plans for their employees in organization level, or it can be in a non-for-profit organizations. But for the US, we haven't done it yet.
Well, hopefully after this webinar, you'll start getting some time from the US.
Yeah, sure. Happy to.
Yes, Mike, how about you?
Yeah, we worked with the USAID project before here in the Philippines. So I'm not sure if the grant that you're talking about is for the US, or I guess it's for outside the US, no? So basically what we did there is we worked with the Rural Bank Association of the Philippines. So it's a bank, again, banking. The USAID was funding a program and basically training rural banks here in the country to do microfinancing. So our participation there is basically developing or converting their content. So their content were all documents, videos, and spread out. So what we did was we developed basically an interface and structured their content to become e-learning ready. So this was, well, it was around 5 years ago. So the last project with them. We had 2 projects with them. So the last one was we deployed DVDs basically because the internet in the provinces is not reliable. So we had DVDs. I think it was 8 DVDs that we were producing for them. That much content. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. So this next question, I guess for both of you. So the Philippines is an IT outsourcing leader and leverages on this expertise in addressing the current demand for e-learning. So can you share with us the new and current approaches in e-learning and how do they dovetail into the existing or older approaches? So the person is citing the use of data analytics and machine learning for tailored fit employee training or student mentorship. So DM, can I start with you?
Yeah, whoever asked this question, beautiful question. Thank you for this. You can, my quick answer for you, if you want to research later down the road as well, take a look at LMS, learning management system versus LXP, which is learning experience platforms. You're right. E-learning has been changing from the eras of CDs, floppies to where we are just subscribing to materials online. But key thing that's now is possible that wasn't possible like a decade back is to understand users' behavior. Whether the material that you're putting out, is it just the material out there, or is it a material that it's already engaging audience, or whether it's giving you the right metrics in terms of that being used in their day-to-day work purposes. And it's more than ever easy to tailor fit different courses. It's no longer that you're a company and you have a library of 1,000 videos and all employees need to go through those 1,000 videos. It doesn't have to be that anymore, because there are some of the solutions like micro learning. Some of the solutions that we provide is content is coming in from everywhere. That's one of the biggest issue, where if you Google a small problem, you'll get a lot of answers to it already, but you figuring out which is the right answer for your situation is the most difficult time today, right? So what we do is we have bridged in the global resources, whether it's Coursera, whether it's LinkedIn Learning, whether it's us getting trainings from Udemy, edX, or even the biggest bookkeeping is the Google Books, or even podcasts, right? So we brought in all that, and we in the company call it a learning journey. A customized learning journey is helping your employees or yourself, for example, taking that best possible learning journey for that whatever objective that you're creating, whether it can be for sales or whether it can be for marketing or whether it can be as simple as, hey, I want to learn a new language, right? So there is a journey that's possible now, so which wasn't possible a few years back. Just take a look at something called LXP, Learning Experience Platform, where it tells you how much it's driven on users' behavior and users' data.
Thanks, DM. Can I have Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for us, the challenge with the cutting edge technology is how easy it is to adapt to for particularly for us for the Philippine market, the lack of bandwidth, etc., and the lack of reliable internet access. But building on what DM said, basically that's where it's going. The data analytics, like the question mentioned, is able to really measure on a micro level how effective learning is, which probably you cannot do before. For example, you can measure how on average, how much how did the student actually listen to the video or to view the video, how long did they listen to the video, how does it compare to their performance in their exams, did they actually read all the readings or did they not do it. So these are all, it's very, very easy now to measure these things on a micro level because of the bandwidth and the internet and the server power that we have. So that's where it's going. It's basically, with these kinds of tools, like DM said, you can actually do a very, very customized educational course already for people based on their past performance. If they did this in this video, then get them to video A. If they perform this in this video, then maybe put them in video B, something like that. So that's where it's going.
Thanks, Mike. So we're just going to the last question, maybe, and going to your closing remarks. We've already gone over time for this webinar. So how do you see the future of e-learning? Whether the pandemic continues on or hopefully it gets resolved soon. So how do you see the future of e-learning probably in a year or two, and why the Philippines? Maybe I'll start with DM.
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, but also, no, sorry, make it a $1 billion question, because training industry is growing exponentially. One thing that you need to understand, or anyone needs to take a look at, is the impact of the environment that we are in right now for these learning behaviors. Whether it's a school-based learning, or whether it's a class-based or a house-based learning or home education, or even if it's training your employees in the company, things are becoming more individualistic. People are already, there are already some solutions that you can subscribe for as simple as $5 a month for something that you really truly need in terms of customized learning behaviors. Where we see, recently I was reading an article in Harvard. So one of the key things that they mentioned is, as we prolong or proceed with this entire new normal, or when we come out of this, one of the key things that you would have to keep in mind is people are already being tuned to being online more than they were like 5 years back, or like 2 years back, or even more than what they were last year. Today, people are spending way more time than they spent last year online. So any solutions that you provide, or any service or any engagement that you want to create, make sure that is in the channel where you understand people and where their interests are, rather than being forcefully pushing a certain amount of content, which people, you might think it's good, but people might not respond to you, or the effectiveness curve for that thing might be very less. So future of e-learning for me in one sentence is going to be online but coronavirus will kind of dictate what a blended online learning will look like. Maybe it's like blended e-learning online. So in terms of how people will receive it, individualistic approach is one of the key words that we would need to keep in mind.
Thanks, TM. Mike, can we close with you?
Yeah, well, in terms of the future of e-learning, obviously this pandemic has forced us all to basically embrace it already. Before, perhaps it was an option, or perhaps it was you can do blended or distance learning. But now, I think it's really going to be a staple already of education, not just for the US, but even for developing countries like the Philippines, that we really have to improve our infrastructure to really embrace distance learning and e-learning for the long term. Not just, even if the pandemic is over, I think it makes sense that we keep the distance learning and e-learning modules alive as an option for students. Why the Philippines? Well, I don't think we should. Basically, we're already the leader. I mean, the Philippines, it should be the first option. If you're thinking of outsourcing outside of the US, it should be the first option. India and the US and the Philippines would be the options you have. Why gamble with any of the other countries? Basically, we're the #1 outsourcing destination already for IT and these types of services. With the pandemic now, people are used to working from home. So this types of remote, basically, with outsourcing, it's basically just working from home, working from a very far away home right now. So hopefully with the pandemic, US companies now realize that it's not that difficult to do outsourcing and to do remote management of projects.
Thank you, Mike. And I think that's a good way to close our program today. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and especially Mike and DM for sharing with us their experiences. So we encourage everyone to continue the conversation with them, and we have their contact details flashed on screen. So again, we encourage you to connect with them, continue the conversation, and take note of how you can get in touch with them. So we still have 5 more webinars to go, and we hope that you continue joining us as we learn about various outsourcing opportunities in the Philippines. We look forward to seeing you on our next webinar next Thursday, September 3. Thank you, and keep safe and healthy.
Thanks, everyone. Have a safe day.